What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Life Coach Zach podcast. I'm your host, Zach Rance. I have a very special guest here with me today, Zander Fryer, best-selling author, internationally renowned speaker, and host of the top podcast on iTunes, Shit You Don't Learn in College. Zander, how you doing today?
Dude, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming and taking the time out of your busy schedule to hop on the Life Coach Zach podcast. You're someone who has built an incredible life coaching business and now help hundreds of coaches around the world do it for themselves. How do you do it?
How did I do it, or how do I do it?
Both.
Maybe we'll start with how I did it, because I think that'll give you a little bit of insight. But a little bit of background on me. I used to work for Cisco Systems, so I was in the tech world. I was an engineer. I had what everybody, kind of told me was a successful life, right? I made multiple six figures, about, $250,000 working for Cisco. I drove a BMW. I lived in Venice Beach. I had what everybody thought would be like a successful life. I covered clients like Disney, NBC, Facebook, Verizon, you name it. About 5 years ago, after a difficult conversation with one of my mentors, he basically helped me realize, like, dude, you might be making money and you might look successful on the outside, but you are unhappy, you are unfulfilled, you are just a scared little kid that wants to do something different and doesn't want to do it, to admit it to themselves. Because I was, I had what everything looked like success on the outside, but inside I felt empty. Like I'd spend money flying to cool places on weekends to, basically fill that gap, or I'd be the guy at the bar buying rounds of shots of tequila for everybody, because I had the money, right? So I wanted to do anything I could to fill that emotional, existential void, if you will. But after a conversation with him, I basically, I quit cold turkey. This was almost exactly 5 years ago, 5 years and like a month or two. And so I quit cold turkey, no idea what I was doing, no network, no entrepreneurial experience, no nothing. I didn't even know I wanted to be a coach at that point. All I really knew was that I wanted to help and I wanted to mentor people, because I did get to do a little bit of mentorship in Cisco, and I was actually in Air Force ROTC in college, and that's what I love to do. I love to lead and help people and serve others. So long story kind of boils down into, like, I quit cold turkey, and within the first month, I spent all of my savings. And now I should probably mention that, like, everybody thinks, they're like, oh, Zander, like, you could do that because you made so much money. You had this like big pile of savings when you quit Cisco. So like you could spend a bunch of money and all this stuff. And I always have to remind people, I'm like, dude, I'm a millennial. Like, you really think I had a stockpile of money? No, like, I spent every damn penny of that. I wasn't like swimming in cash or something. So I had about 3 months of living expenses saved up, and I spent all of it in the first 30 days on different coaches and mentors and programs. And then I put myself about 25, 30K in debt, because I, basically realized, I was like, if I had spent, I had to pay my way through college, and I'd spent about $120,000 to get a degree at UCLA. And it led me down a career path that I didn't want to be in. So why would I even hesitate to spend, some money and invest in myself when I finally do know what it is that I want to do? So spent all my savings, put about 25, 30K on credit cards. And about 3 months in, I still hadn't made a dime in my coaching business. And I remember being about 2 weeks away from not being able to pay rent because I'd maxed out 2 of my credit cards. And that's really, it was in those last 2 or 3 weeks that it all kind of clicked together and I started enrolling clients. I remember my first client was like $2,700. Then the next one was like $3,500. Then it was $4,500. Then it was $6K. And so that first month I made like 13 grand. The next month I made 17 grand. Then it was 24, 32, 40 something. And so I started to climb out of it very, very rapidly. So you kind of asked, like, how did I do it? Right. So that's kind of the story of what happened. And then, since then, ended up that first 12 months in business, ended up having my first 6-figure month within about 12 months. Kind of like you mentioned, now we've helped over 760 something coaches build 6-figure, multiple 6-figure and 7-figure businesses. The way that I did it, and this was 5 years ago, this was very contrary to what everybody was teaching. Right. everybody at the time was telling me, oh, you're just starting off. You gotta do some free opt-ins. You gotta build a list. You gotta shoot out emails. You gotta have this landing page and this website, and you gotta do a blog, and you gotta, sell this $97 program. And I was like thinking about it. I'm like, are you shitting me? Like if I just wanted to build a 6-figure business, right? To have a 6-figure business, let's call it roughly 10K a month, I would have to sell roughly 100 $97 programs every single month. And I'm like, there's no way in hell that I can do that. Like, that's never going to happen. And so what I did is I actually remembered when I used to work for Cisco, and I covered companies like Disney and NBC and Facebook and all these companies. I held a quota of $130 million. Now, if I wanted to hit $130 million quota, am I going to go try and sell 1,000 100K deals? No, it's never going to happen, right? That's the most stupid thing I've ever heard. So what am I trying to do? I'm trying to go build intimate relationships with people. I'm trying to get big, bolder deals, and I'm trying to get crazy big results for people. And our clients, Disney and those types of clients, I'm going to get deals and opportunities that are 15 million, 20 million, 30 million, 40 million to push me over that threshold. Right. And so I still remember this. I had 2 mentors that told me, like, Zander, you're just starting off as a coach. You can never charge high ticket until you have a ton of experience doing this. And I literally said, fuck you. Right. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on the show, but I just did. So, okay, cool. I figured by your hair and my hair, we're allowed to say fuck. So
we have fucking good hair. We can say
we have fucking great hair. So I know I can say fuck. But yeah, literally I was like, fuck you, I'm going to go do it. And literally that's what I did. I was trying to do all these lead generation things and these low ticket things, and I couldn't get anything to sell for 3 months. And I just went and did it my way, which was, basically from the very beginning, starting from the top. First client I had was almost $3,000. And they got amazing results because they were paying me what it was actually worth. When you go change someone's life, what's it actually worth to them? It's worth a lot more than $97. Also, when someone pays $97, they don't do the work. When someone pays $3,000, they do the work and they get the result. So, I started from the top, and I focused on, instead of trying to market with like ads and things like that, I focused on intimacy. I focused on building relationships, connecting with people, and actually learning about what people's problems were and what they wanted and how to solve it. Right. I did the same thing with Disney. I did the same thing with Facebook. That's how I built relationships with them. I understood them. And when I fully understood their problem, I showed them how I would solve it. And they said, yes, I want you to do that. Right. And it's the same thing with people, right? We live in a very automated, disconnected world, right? We're more connected than ever, but we're also more disconnected than ever. Right. And all we really want is a little bit of intimacy, a little bit of somebody giving a shit and actually caring about what our problems are and if they can intimately help us specifically, not everybody else, but us specifically. Right. And so when I first started, I worked intimately with people, one-on-one with people, learned their problems, had these conversations. And because of that, my followership grew, my clientele list grew, because while everybody else was trying to run Facebook ads and everybody else was trying to do automated marketing and spamming everybody, I was just having deep conversations with one person at a time. And really, that's what it took. That got me to, the $500,000 mark and my first 7 figures, just being very, very intimate and focusing on high ticket only, working with less people, but going deeper with them and creating real transformation.
And scaling that way by commanding more money, not trying to get more clients by commanding more money, because this coaching, it's how much is your life worth? You can't put 100%. A price on an incredible life and being able to step in to the greatest version of yourself each and every single day. That's worth a lot more than $6,000.
Yeah. And I think the big problem is most people aren't ready to admit that. And I think that's what a lot of coaches struggle with, right? A lot of coaches that are maybe they're life coaches or health coaches or relationship coaches, career coaches, whatever they might be, a lot of them hope that their audience understands that. But most of our audience has done a really good job of numbing out their problems so that they don't see it anymore, right? For most people, the only way that you can live with your problems is by numbing it out and pretending it's not that bad. So one of the things that we teach a lot of our clients is you have to actually help them understand it. You have to communicate in a way that your audience now realizes, holy shit, this is worth a lot more than $6,000 to me now and in the future. And if I don't change, like, I'm just headed down this path of downward spiral path of desperation and a worse outcome. So it's really teaching them about how to communicate that intimately, with people.
Absolutely. So you have a book coming out, Shit You Don't Learn in College, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little more about that?
Absolutely. Well, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's in the name. But just like I was mentioning, I spent $120,000 on my degree from UCLA, had to pay off that debt while working through Cisco, and then I spent the next 5 years working in a job that, don't get me wrong, it wasn't terrible. It wasn't a dead-end job. I was making great money. I had great opportunities, but it wasn't me, right? And so I quickly realized that what I learned in college and what I learned before college, frankly, was outdated and didn't work. And so I set out on a 5-year journey to actually figure out, well, what is the stuff that actually leads us to a life filled with more money, more meaning, and more freedom, right? And obviously now we've implemented that with hundreds of people. So we've really refined what it actually means to build a life with more money, more meaning, and more freedom. So a couple of the things that I always tell people, first of all, before I dig into the book itself and some of the teachings there, I always like to tell people the US government actually didn't want me to write this book. When I went to get the trademark for Shit You Don't Learn in College, right? The whole idea pointing out that the bureaucracy is broken.
Right.
I went to get a trademark from the US and Patent Trade Office, and they actually denied it. So they denied the Shit You Don't Learn in College trademark because the quote unquote, the idea is lewd and offensive to the idea of higher education.
Wow.
So I actually had to take that. I went to a lawyer buddy and we actually took that to court, and we took it to the Supreme Court. 2 years later, it was deemed unconstitutional, and they ended up giving me my trademark because they basically were trying to prevent me from doing something that I have a constitutional right to do, which is the right to free speech.
And you're not shitting on anyone. You're just saying there's stuff that you don't learn in college.
I'm just saying the truth. That's all.
There's
and that here's the deal, right?
That's a fact.
This is not unknown, right? So Forbes recently did a study, or it was Gallup. Gallup did a study that found that 49% of Americans now view college as unimportant.
Right.
49%.
Half.
Now view college as unimportant. On top of that, 87%, this is the study that Forbes did. Forbes did a study that found that 87% of 9-to-5ers are either unhappy, disengaged, stressed, anxious, or depressed and don't want to be in their jobs. 87%. That means only 13% of people who are in 9-to-5s are actually happy. That is insane, right? And part of this is because the entire system itself is so messed up. Right? It's not designed in a way to actually help us become individually contributing, happy, fulfilled members of society. Do you know where the education system came from, by the way, Zach?
I don't know.
Do you want me to blow your mind?
Please.
Okay. So this is one of my favorite things to talk about. But so the education system has a very interesting history. If you go back to Plato's Republic, right? Ancient Greece, there's something called the trivium. The trivium is the classical education system. The 3 parts of the trivium are referred to as grammar, logic, and rhetoric. Okay. Now, in Plato's Republic, you had to spend years, even decades, mastering these 3 things before you focused on anything specific. So let me break that down. Grammar, when broken down, becomes the ability to learn. Okay. Logic becomes the ability to reason. And rhetoric becomes the ability to critically think on something and re-deliver it. So essentially, you're mastering over the course of years or decades the ability to learn on your own, the ability to reason on your own, and the ability to think on your own. Okay? Now, what happens in ancient Rome, which is a militaristic imperial society focused on imperial expansion, right? Well, Rome relies on soldiers, right? Well, what makes a terrible soldier? Someone who learns on their own, someone who reasons on their own, and someone who thinks on their own. So in ancient Rome, they completely do away with the trivium and they create what's called objective-based learning, which is what we use today, is objective-based learning. Now, if you take a look at the U.S., when the U.S. was originally founded, we're talking Ben Franklin days, like the good years, the founding fathers, that was actually based on the classical education system. Plato's Republic, grammar, logic, rhetoric. Around the industrial revolution, it all shifted back to an economic version of ancient Rome. If you think of corporations, corporations aren't armies, but what are they? They're basically economic armies, little economic armies where you want your worker ants and your cogs in a wheel to produce this big industrial machine. Now, I can't shit on capitalism because honestly, capitalism has brought us a lot of great things. It's brought us advancements in technology, advancements in healthcare, advancements in so many different things. But it is hard not to argue that at the same time, it has also brought us a plethora, a cornucopia of mental health issues, stress and anxiety issues, a lack of connectedness, individualism that has come with it as well. And our world is seeing that more and more now than ever. And literally, that's what's going on. Our education system is based around a militaristic approach to building soldiers. And over the last several decades, we've started to realize that more and more, and it needs to change.
Mm-hmm. Incredible. Yeah. So long story short, they just want us to work this 9-to-5 job and be yes man and be miserable because they want control over the masses, right?
Exactly. And the biggest thing here, right, is for a majority of us, what is our biggest fear subconsciously? There's a lot of studies that were done around this. A lot of people will say like fear of failure or fear of whatever it is, but fear of failure isn't actually our biggest fear. What we actually fear is we fear being seen failing. We fear being different. We fear being judged. We fear being criticized. Why? Because psychologically, this is closely associated with the emotion of shame. Right? Shame is the lowest energetic emotion that we can feel. So Dr. David R. Hawkins talks about this in his book, Power versus Force. But shame is the lowest energetic emotion you can feel, just above death. Literally, it is just above death. That's why for suicide, there are people that will commit suicide. My best friend committed suicide because he felt ashamed of who he was. People will kill themselves because of the emotion of shame. So we will do anything in our power as humans not to feel judgment, criticism, or shame. That's why so many people stay in 9-to-5s that they hate. That's why so many people stay in relationships or marriages that they hate, because they don't want to be don't want to be socially judged or ostracized for failing at their marriage, for failing at their career or something else, even though it's slowly killing them inside anyways.
Amazing. So what's some of the shit you don't learn in college?
Good question. Well, I'll kind of give you the outline of the book and maybe a couple of things inside if that would be helpful. Yeah. But basically what we found is there's essentially four major pieces to living a successful, fulfilled, like abundant life, right? The first one is understanding how you as a human being work. Now, Zach, I don't know if maybe you were different, but I was never given a user's manual for my brain. Like, were you ever given a user's manual for you? I bet you were given. I see a fancy, oven and microwave back there. I bet you have a user's manual for your microwave and oven or your TV, but you were never given a user's manual for your brain, right? Which is by far the most powerful technological advanced tool that we have. And we're never told how to properly use it or understand it. So the first thing that we have to teach everybody is how to use your body, your brain, your emotions. Most people don't even know that 95% of your brain is subconscious mind. It's like a supercomputer. Okay. So the first thing that I always tell people, right, is like, if you want to go achieve your goals and you've got your 5% conscious mind and 95% subconscious, well, if you have 5 horses that are like thoroughbred horses running towards your goals and they're chained to 95 donkeys that are walking the other direction, who's going to win? The donkeys every time. So if you don't know how to program those donkeys, if you don't know how to program that 95% of your brain, because right now, guess who's programming it? Society, media, your parents, your friends, and bad habits, your old school, like all of these things are what programmed your subconscious. So it's not helping you. So the first thing is you need to learn how you work as a human being. Otherwise, you'll never be happy, fulfilled, and successful. The second thing is you have to be crystal clear on what it is that you actually want. Most people, it's funny because we ask kids, 17 and 18-year-old kids, to decide how they're going to spend the rest of their life. Right? Yeah. Zach, I don't know about you, but like when you were 17 years old, did you know what you wanted to do for the rest of your life?
I thought I wanted to be an accountant. That's how stupid I was.
But that's cute, right? It's cute.
Right. It was,
right?
I'll go to
To be honest,
University of Florida. I'll get a degree in accounting. I'll be a CPA. I'll work for one of the top 4 firms. I'll make $100,000 out of college, or maybe a couple years later, and
because,
I'm rich.
but do you see, because that's what everybody told
Right.
you should
Right.
want. That's
Exactly.
not even what you wanted. That's what your parents and your friends
Right.
and like everybody told me, oh, Xander, go to UCLA, get an engineering degree because you'll make great money. We'll always need engineers. You'll have a nice staple family, the white picket fence,
Uh-huh.
the dog, all that shit, right? Like, but that's not what we wanted. To be honest, when I was 17 years old, I was thinking about who's going to buy me beer this weekend,
Mhm.
and am I going to be able to meet up with that cute girl from
Same.
Spanish?
Yeah.
Right? That was all I cared about. And we're asked to now make a decision around spending hundreds of thousands of dollars and the next couple of decades of our life, potentially multiple decades until you retire at 17 years old, right? And so like as a 17-year-old, you don't have that wherewithal to make that decision. But, later on in your life, you can go through certain exercises that can actually get extreme clarity around your purpose in life, how you should be spending it, a career that would actually fulfill you. And we've done these exercises with hundreds of people. And everybody always says, Alexander, finding your purpose in life takes a lifetime. Bullshit. It takes a lifetime for people who aren't looking properly, right? If you have a map, you're going to get there a lot faster. So number 2 is you got to get clarity. Number 3 is execution. So there's certain skill sets that actually create an action taking, executing, results bringing person, and they are literally the exact opposite of the characteristics you are taught in school, right? For example, did you know that 77% of self-made millionaires, Forbes did a study on this, 77% of self-made millionaires are not A students. The high majority of them are actually C students with some B students. 4 out of 5. 4 out of 5 self-made millionaires are not A students. Why is that? Because A students are developing habits that'll actually prevent you from making money outside in the real world. They'll prevent you from building fulfillment and having success. What they found is that C students practice certain habits that were really helpful. Number 1, they're not afraid to fail. Number 2, they're not afraid to get just good enough out there. Whereas A students are always trying to be perfect. They're always trying to, put out their best work that first time, where C students are like, I just got to get something done, right? As an entrepreneur, success loves speed. So you just got to get something done and then make it better and better, right? The perfectionist overthinks and then they miss the market. Right. So there's so many things that C students actually do better than A students because they're not playing the game of the school system. Unfortunately, I was an A student. That messed with me for so long. When I started my entrepreneurial business, I had to completely get rid of so many of my quote unquote good characteristics and the things that allowed me to be successful in the corporate world because they didn't work as an entrepreneur. Right. So we have 12 skills and 12 character traits that you have to learn how to master to be successful, fulfilled, abundant in the real world. And they're all literally the exact opposite of what you've been taught in school. And then the last thing that I always tell people is like, okay, if you know how to operate yourself, you have clarity on where you're going, you build the skill set to get there. The last thing is you actually need the tactical strategies, right? You have to have the tactics and the strategies to actually be successful. So this is things like, how to be productive, not just busy, how to handle stress and anxiety so that you don't get overwhelmed, sales, influence, leadership, communication skills, all of these things that are not taught in school, but tactically and strategically are some of the most important things that allow you to be successful in life. So all of these things kind of come together, like we were talking about at the, before this. They create this like almost like a combination lock, right? Like if you have 8 out of the 9 or 10 numbers, the lock doesn't open. Right. But as soon as you get all 10, it just seems to pop open and you start to see more money, you start to be happier, stronger relationships, all of these things.
Amazing. Those are very 4 important things for sure. And we're all learning over time. It's not like, oh, you didn't learn in college, but you can learn it all right now. Life is a journey, life is a process, and you got to try.
Yeah, mastery takes time.
Yeah, it takes time. You got to try. You got to get out there. You got to make mistakes. You got to fail. You got to fail fast, right? You got to go after your dreams, and you'll learn more about yourself.
And that's one of the skill sets. That's one of the skill sets and character traits that we actually talk about from an execution standpoint. Is you actually have to seek failure, right? Whereas most people, like we were just talking about, run from failure. And we all, like, everybody's heard that we need to fail more if we want to be successful, yet we still don't do it. Why? Because, like I just talked about, fear of judgment, fear of criticism, fear of shame. So we hold ourselves back. But what we found is the people that not only are okay with failing, but actually seek failure. They want to fail. They want to fail faster. They want to fail bigger because they associate failure with growth and learning, right? So if failure equals growth, then not only am I okay with failing, I want to fail, and I want to fail more, and I want to fail faster, and I want to fail bigger. I want to look like the biggest fucking fool on the face of this planet, because I know if I go do that, I'm going to learn the biggest goddamn lesson on the face of this planet.
It. You heard it here, folks. You heard it here first, folks. Fail fast, fail bigger. Xander,
fail hard.
Fail hard. Zander, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast today. Everyone, go ahead and get Xander's book. It's coming out in a few weeks. Shit you don't learn in college. I'm assuming they can get it on Amazon, Zander?
They can get it on Amazon. If you also, we're giving away about $3,000 in free programs as well at, so it's sydlicbook.com, SYDLIC book.com, which stands for shit you don't learn in college, in case you couldn't tell. So giving away a bunch of free stuff as well. If you want to go there for it.
If you are listening on Apple or Spotify, I will put the link below the YouTube video or on my website. And go ahead and follow Zander on Instagram, Zander Fryer on Instagram. And Zander, thanks so much again for your time today. And good luck on the book. Can't wait to get my hands on a copy.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.